Hi, today I'm going to be going over the ComEd hourly pricing program. I have found it the best way and the easiest way to save money on my electric bill beyond any other program I've tried, including third party providers. So today I'm going to go over an overview of the program and basically go over the key elements of the program and then also go through some of my bill examples of my personal bill and show you varying amounts of power used and how much money is saved on those varying different types of bills. So let's start with the summary of the program. So again, summary of the ComEd pricing program. It's designed and implemented actually by Elevate Energy. ComEd works with them for this program. Each hour of the day calculates the average hourly price of energy. This information is provided by PJM. They report the wholesale energy prices to ComEd. And then the smart meter collects the power data and correlates that with the time of day. And then ComEd then takes that information, correlates it with the wholesale information, and basically that's what they use to add up your bill. I found with no change in my power usage behavior at all, I have saved money. You can certainly save more money by changing your power usage and how you use your power and what time of day you use your power. So in other words, if you did laundry, you know, basically in the evening, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, instead of doing it at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, especially during the summer, you can certainly save some money by moving certain things to certain power producing things to a time of day that has lower prices. But again, I have not done that. We have just continued to use power the way that we were using power before. ComEd recommends to consider moving to this program if you have 350 kilowatt hours or more. But I will show you through some examples that I think you can have less than that actually and still save money on this program. And actually, back when I started to use this program, it was called Residential Real-Time Pricing. They since had changed the program name to the Hourly Pricing Program. I should also mention that Ameren has a similar type of program that Elevate Energy also designed for them. I believe it's similar to this program, but you would want to investigate that for yourself. So ComEd provides a pricing dashboard that the day before they will tell you what they think the price of energy is going to be based on the information they have from PJM, and then what the actual price of energy is based upon the usage on the network and the demand on the network. As you can see, they're generally pretty close, but they're very rarely are exactly what is predicted. But it gives you an idea of when the peak times are going to be during the day. So you can view this on their web portal, on the hourly pricing web portal, and it is provided real time. So let's go over some sample bills. So on the left-hand side is the standard bill, and on the right-hand side is actually my November bill and all my charges. The delivery and the taxes are exactly the same. Nothing changes between the two bills. All of the magic happens in the electric supply services section. So let's go over each of those line by line. So if you look at the electricity supply charge, you can see on the standard, it has a standard rate. It's the amount of power that you use times the rate. And that's what comes up with the total. If you look on the hourly, all you see is the amount of power used. Okay, so the rate, because it's not a standard rate and it varies, they don't put the rate in. That accumulated total is based upon what the smart meter plus the actual data from PJM and the power used depending on when the power was used, that's how they calculate that total. The next charge actually on the hourly is the capacity charge, and that is a key difference between the two programs. And that is usually the biggest question that people have is that capacity charge. How is it calculated? How does it affect things? I'll be going over that in detail as far as how to determine your own capacity charge and such. And I'll be doing that in just a few moments. So then the transmission services charge, they both have a standard rate, but the transmission services charge on both programs is different. So that amount will be different. It's actually lower on the hourly than it is on the sample residential bill. Part of the reason for that is because on the hourly, the miscellaneous procurement component charge is included in the standard rate transmission services charge. Then below that, you have the purchased electricity adjustment, and that is different between the two programs, but generally balances out between the two. One month, one might be higher than the other. Next month, it's the opposite. So in my examples, I just made them the same since I didn't have exactly what the purchased electricity adjustment was for that month for the standard rate. So like I said, I balanced it out. It's pretty much lost in the noise, and you'll see that when we go to look at the bills. And then I also have solar, so I do have some net metering credits from my solar production. But again, that kind of gets lost in the noise. And again, when we go over the bills, I'll show you that as well. So again, as I mentioned before, the delivery services charges and the taxes are exactly the same. So we will not be touching on those because they are exactly the same between the two bills. So as I mentioned, the capacity charge is where people have a lot of questions. So the capacity charge is a factor of 4 different elements. Only one of them you have control over, and that's the capacity PLC. That factor is based upon the highest usage or the highest demand on the network and what your usage was during those highest demand events. Believe it's 4 or 5 events that they measure, and based upon those events is how your capacity PLC is determined. So for instance, if you are cooling your house and you notice through an alarm, there's ways you can set alarms and things like that for when the cost of power goes up. If you see the cost of power go up and you turn up your thermostat, instead of cooling your home to 74 degrees, you decide you're going to cool it to 80 degrees, so that you lessen your demand on the network, that will help your capacity PLC for the following year. So your capacity PLC is determined the summer prior to when it goes into effect. So for instance, that June 20th to May 21st, June of 2020 to May of 2021, that's my current capacity charge. That capacity charge was determined by what I used over the summer of 2019. So it does take a while for that to go into effect. So what I used this past summer in 2020 will go into effect on June of 2021 this year. So because I did put in solar in September of 2019, past when the capacity charge was determined, so this was my first summer that I had solar. Those high demand periods, I had solar helping me out, so I had much lower demand. And you'll see next year, you could see that capacity PLC is about a third of what it was this year. So, but again, we're not going to be looking at that. Most people aren't going to have solar that have this program, but this is basically how it's determined. Now, I'll provide links to all this information in the description, but the link down below, the secure.comed.com, my account, blah, 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 that will take you to the page where you can get all of this information, your scaling factor, your forecast pool requirement, monthly capacity charge, along with your capacity PLC. As long as you have a smart meter. If you don't have a smart meter, then they wouldn't be able to determine this information, but most people do have smart meters at this point. So that's how the capacity charge is calculated. And again, like I said, this is something that is only on the hourly program. It is not on your standard rate. So let's get into comparing bills. And I've got bills that vary dramatically. This one has 1900 kilowatt hours, and I've got bills all the way down to 204 kilowatt hours. So you can see how the cost savings will differ depending on how much power you use. And basically the summary of it is the more power you use, the more savings you're gonna see by going to an hourly program. So again, as I mentioned, all the yellow sections, those are only the supply charges. That's where the magic happens. That's where the differences are. So at the very top, you can see this is where I've calculated and put, or I should say just entered in what the standard rate is for ComEd at the current time. So I've used this to calculate what the standard bill would be. So, and again, all of this information for the hourly came straight from my bill. So the electric supply charge you'll see is much, much lower than on the standard rate. But the capacity charge is added where it isn't on the standard rate. So the hourly rate has that capacity charge, but a much lower supply charge than the transmission services and miscellaneous component charge. Basically, the comparable charge on a standard rate charge is your transmission services charge. And then, as I mentioned before, it will differ from month to month. One might be higher, one might be lower, but in this example, I've just made them both the same. And then I also have net metering credits. So I've done the net metering credits that actually came on my bill, but also calculated them using the standard rate. So again, this is what it would have looked like if I had the standard rate. So in this particular example where I was using, again, a high amount of power for a month, I would think for a basically standard 2,000 square foot home, I saved quite a bit. I saved $57 in this month, and that was from the previous month, just December 2020. So my savings on just the supply portion was 44%. So with my overall bill saving just under 25%. That's a significant amount of savings in my book. Let's go over a few more though. Basically, just to give you a couple more examples, this one, net power used, this is probably more typical, maybe a little bit high, but more typical of a house of this size. So basically 1,200 kilowatt hours a month. In this particular month, this was my November bill. And I saved 43.37%, saved $35 this month. So the total amount saved was about 23%. So one of the things I did was I said, okay, those are great examples. He's cherry picking them. I'm not cherry picking. In fact, I tried to go back and find the two worst months I could find, which would be the least amount of power used. So that would be these 2 months here, which was March of 2020 and actually February of 2020. I forgot to mark this one as February. So in this case, I have 204 and 216. One of the other things that makes, in fact, this last example is the worst. And part of the reason why this one was the worst, I guess I was generating at a little bit higher. So I was actually getting a little bit more for the money for the power I was generating than what I was actually paying into the system. So this actually did help me a little bit this month. But again, because it was so little power being used, this capacity charge, which in this period of time was much lower, due to how the weather was the previous year and how I was using power the previous year. I wasn't using as much power that previous summer. But even with this little amount of power, which I think is unrealistic for most people, I still was saving $1.12 or 7%. So yes, even with that low amount of power, I was saving it. I think the amount of savings that you're getting at this point is very, very low. So I think that 350 kilowatt hours that Commonwealth Edison recommends is a good target. You would want to be above that to really make it worth your while, and to make sure that your demand charge wasn't affecting you too poorly, where maybe you would be paying a little bit more, depending on what your usage was. But again, in my case, 216, I was still saving $1.12. So you can see through very different examples, every single example I was saving money, and I was trying to find, and I know one month, and I don't remember what year it was, there was one month where I paid like $1 or $2 more. And that was where we had an extremely harsh cold snap, where we had -15 to -25 temperatures overnight for a number of days. And that caused the cost of electricity to go up. But again, when you average it out over the month, it was a very, very small amount, a very small effect to the entire bill. So one last one I want to go over, and this is a very typical. This was September of 2020. 840 kilowatt hours, maybe a little bit low for that time of year, since it's still warm and people are using their air conditioning. So, but again, overall, a typical amount of power used for a small to medium sized home. And in this particular case, I was still saving 36%. Now, in this particular case, I did get some benefit because I was generating electricity from my solar at a higher rate than what I was being charged. But at the same time, because I'm averaging this capacity charge over fewer kilowatts, since I was generating quite a bit of energy, and my actual power used during this period of time was 1,500. This amount would get lost, and actually my savings would have been greater than that 36.78%. So again, in every example, and in over 5 years that I've been in this program, I have saved money at literally every single month except for one. So I've had great experience with this program. I could not suggest it. I completely endorse this program. Do your own research. This is not financial advice, but hopefully I've provided you enough information where you can go ahead and take a look at the information I've provided, and determine for yourself if this is the right program for you. Also, I've provided a link in the description below where you can get a $20 credit by using that link. I will also get a $20 credit as well, so there is a benefit to me if you do use that link. If you know anybody else on the hourly program, please use your friend's link, ask them about it, and they will provide you a link so you provide that credit to your friend. But hopefully, if you have any questions, please comment below. I will respond to comments and let you know, try to answer any questions you may have with the program. And good luck in 2021. Thank you.